We are done with user pools for now. Now let's start with identity pools. So as we have seen, identity pools are used to grant temporary access to AWS resources using IAM for the end users. And we have also seen the workflow. So workflow looks something like this. We create ID pool, Cognito ID pool, and with ID pool we configure certain type of identity providers like Google, Facebook, or Cognito user pool. And when user wants to get access to some AWS resource, let's say S3, then first they authenticate to identity provider, and after that they take the ID token from there, and that ID token is sent to Cognito ID pool. And for that ID token, if there is identity already existing, or if it's not exist, then Cognito will create identity, and then Cognito will use AWS STS to create credentials for configured IAM roles, and those credentials will be returned back to the user, and user will use those credentials to access the AWS resources. Also, that credential will have limited time validity, so it will expire after some time. In Cognito user pool, in Cognito identity pool, configuration is something like this. We can create a ID pool and create two kind of access: guest access and authenticated access. And for guest access, if there is any random user on internet who is not authenticated to our identity providers, if they try to get credentials using identity pool, first they have to create identity using doing identity get ID call, and then they can get credentials, and they will receive credentials for IAM role which we have configured. And generally we configure this IAM role with very minimum privileges, like view only for S3 bucket, for example. Another type of access that we can grant is authenticated access, where identity providers like Google, Facebook, and Cognito users will, when they will log in, they will be granted this role. Also, we can add more granular control between identity provider by doing this kind of configuration, where guest user will get this role, and all the authenticated users will by default get this role. But we can edit the settings so that if ID token from Cognito contains certain claims, like if it's from admin group, then instead of using this default role, we can grant them some another role. So these are the configurations possible. And workflow with identity pool is like this. First we get identity token from identity provider, and once we have ID token, we use that token to talk to ID pool to fetch ID details. Either if ID is already existing, then it will not create. If it's not there, then it will create and return the identity. Once we have identity and ID token, identity ID and ID token, we again talk to Cognito ID pool to get IAM credentials. So let's go to Cognito identity pool console and create new identity pool. We want both type of users, guest and authenticated. And for guest users, for authenticated users, we will use AWS Cognito as identity provider. In next step, it will ask us to configure roles. So I'm at this step now. Here it's asking me to choose which role I want for guest and which for authenticated users. So I will create new role. Let's call it demo role, and this one let's call demo guest role. And these are the policies which we are getting created. So for authenticate role, this is the policy, and for guest, this is the policy which is being attached. And in action we can see get credential for identity. So this action will allow us to get IAM credentials for this IAM role using ID pool. Let's go to next step. For now, I'm keeping both as same. Later, we will go to IAM dashboard and attach more policies for authenticated role. User pool ID. So it's asking which user pool I want to use. Let's create new user pool. For this demo, I will use public client. This is optional, not required. Or we need it for getting tokens. Create. I will skip. Also, to get tokens quickly, I will go and enable implicit grant and save it, so later we do not have to do. Now client ID is this one, and user pool ID is this one, AP South H73. So we see here AP South H73. Let's copy and paste it here. Client, we have only one client, so it will come here, and all of the settings we will keep default. Next, user pool name, let's call it my first ID pool, and rest I will keep default. Review and create. Now we have identity pool here. We got one identity pool, and AWS automatically created these two roles for me and attached to their respective identity providers. So if I go to identity pool properties, I guess user access, yeah. So under user access, we can see for authenticated user we have this role, and for guest users we have this demo guest role, and right now we have only one identity provider, which is AWS Cognito. Now to interact with this ID pool, there is no UI similar to Cognito user pool hosted UI, so we need to use APIs to interact with this ID pool. Let's go to documentation. So Cognito APIs docs, and in this documentation we need to go to documentation API reference for Cognito identity pools or federated identities. This one, and here we have all the APIs, and here create identity pool we have already created. Let's first play with guest user. So to create identity and get identity ID, first we need to use this API call, and what we have to do is to call Cognito with these headers, and we will get the ID. Right now if I go here under user statics or identity browser, we have no identity. Let's make our first call to identity pool and as a guest user, and get create ID first, create one identity. So here I have curl commands to get identity. For guest user we do like this. For authenticated users we pass login also, so that's extra thing there. I will copy it, and we will modify it. This URL will remain same, only region will we will have to change. We are in correct region. Under header we are passing a XAMJ target as AWS Cognito identity service dot get ID. We can also pass this one full from com dot to get ID, but here our concern is get ID. So get ID is there. Only thing which I have to update is identity pool ID. And when we will make this API call, we will get new identity, and here no security is there because this is supposed to be for any public internet user. I will import it here. In Postman I imported the command, and here we can see in the header we have this. Let's send it, and we got our identity ID. Let's copy it. So it's kind of user only which got created here, and here we can see one identity and it's unauthenticated user, and here also we should see something. Yeah, we got 15 seconds ago we created. Now to issue token for this identity, we need to use get credentials for identity, and here we have to use this header get credentials identity, and we have to pass identity ID. So here we have this curl command. I will copy it, and let's modify. This is correct, this is correct. Identity ID, so this is the identity which just got created, and login, since it's internet user or guest user, no need to pass login. For Cognito user pool as identity provider, we will use it. Let's make new API call, and here we got access key ID, expiration, secret key, session token. And if I go here, now let's create one user in user pool, and use identity pool with user pool as identity provider. Also, before doing that, let's go to user access, and for authenticated users role, let's modify this role to add some permissions. Here for unauthenticated user we got these risk credentials, but since this user do not have any policy attached to it, it will not be of any use for now. So for authenticated user, let's go and attach some policies. By default we have only this for creation of credential. Now I will add one more policy, and let's call it s3 list. So it will be like s3 read only, and if I see inside it we have get list. It will allow to list all buckets and get all objects. Let's add it, and now we are ready to create our first user in user pool. Let's go to app client, and login pages. Response type I will change to token. Here we got ID and access token. Let's paste it here, and ID pool is from ID token is from here to here. Let's discard access token because it will not work. We need to use only ID token, and now let's make API calls. So first we will make this call for authenticated user to create identity and return identity. Here we need to update identity pool ID. I will update it, and under logins we have to do Cognito IDP region.aws. So we need user pool ID here. Let's go to user pool here, and this is the URL which it wants. Let's see if it's in format. Okay, so we have to copy from here to here, and paste it here. Also, let's update ID token. And now when we will make this call to get identity, it will create one authenticated user in the identity pool. So import, paste, and send. We got 200 response, and this is the identity ID for authenticated user. This one. Let's go to ID pool statistics, and here we can see we have one authenticated user and one authenticated user for this particular user pool. And now we will get credentials for this user, IAM credentials. It will be same as last time. We need to pass identity ID, and with identity ID, this time we need to pass login, which is this one. So I will copy it from here to here. And using this ID token, it will issue IAM credentials for us. It says identity ID failed to satisfy the constraint. Let's see where we... Okay, here I have to pass identity ID instead of identity pool ID, because we are trying to get IAM token for this IAM credentials for this particular ID. Here we got credentials, access key ID, expiration, secret key, session token, and identity ID. Now let's since we have already granted this the role which is attached to the role the role which is attached to authenticated access user types or identity types. So we have already attached S3 role, and we should be able to make queries related to S3, get queries, but it's not straightforward. We can't just make the call. We can't just use this token as it is and make API call. For that, we need to either use SDK or we need to create request signed by AWS signature version 4 to make the request using curl or postman. So for that, I have created this script here. In the repo, you can find it as create curl for S3 using iamcreds.js, and just copy it, and let's create one file as creds.js and paste the code here. In this code, you have to just update this part, data part, and data we got IAM credentials. So copy from here to here. No need to copy identity ID, just this block. And here we can see we have key ID, expiration, secret key, and session token. So copy it, remove this block, and paste it as it is. Now let's run the script JavaScript file. So node create.js. This is the curl command, and I think because of improper structure here, if I try to import it in Postman, it's not working properly. So that's why what we can do instead of using this curl command, what we can do, we can use this URL and fetch data here only. So we will pass all headers and URL and log value in this JavaScript code only. Here we got 200 response and list of all buckets which we have in our account.